Good afternoon and welcome to Chargers Outside Zone. I'm Chuck.
I'm Thomas, and today we had an interview with
Sports Illustrated's Conor Orr.
Yes.
So in episode 18 of Chargers Outside Zone, we took a look at Conor's top 100 bold predictions for 2022 NFL.
And took the AFC.
Well, and we took the 10 Chargers bits out of that and
Yes.
or Chargers related things and talked about them.
Yes.
When I tweeted out that episode, sharing it across Twitter, we were surprised that Conor quote tweeted the tweet and then he direct messaged me and asked, is there anything I can do to help promote the show? Love the show. And we invited him to come on, and he joined us this evening, and we talked a lot about football.
Yes.
And had a great time. One little spoiler alert is towards the very end of the podcast, we asked Conor, is there anything you want to close with? He requested, for people to go out and buy hard copies of Sports Illustrated. Typically not something we do in 2022, but if you're thank Conor for his time, if you're by your local newsstand,
Actually,
pick up or grocery store.
Actually, buy a hard copy for once.
Pick up that paper copy of Sports Illustrated. I also went online and looked at the cost of a subscription, and so it's 12 magazines for 1 year at $20, or you can do the 2-year subscription, 24 magazines in total for $30. So a couple different options there: your local grocery store, your newsstand, or buy a subscription.
Buy a subscription.
And with no further ado, let's get to that interview.
Let's get to that interview, man.
So joining us right now is Conor Orr, writer for Sports Illustrated. Huge thank you for Conor for taking his time to join us.
Welcome to the podcast, Conor.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I said I listened to the one where you guys broke down my 100 bold predictions, and I texted you guys, I want to come on. This is a good show.
Yeah, we were very lucky. My wife,
Yes.
Thomas's mom, she's the one that found the article on Apple News, and like I said in that episode, it was kind of a family affair, not just the father-son hobby that it usually is. But since we do have you on the show, some of the things that we wanted to know, I followed some of your stuff when you're on previous podcasts and writing for Sports Illustrated and your podcast, the MMQB podcast. Where did your love of football originate growing up?
It's a great question. So, grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania. My family were diehard Notre Dame fans.
Okay.
Just total. I mean, that was, outside of actual church, but that was church 1A. Was like church and Notre Dame. That was the two most important things growing up, and our lives just kind of revolved around that. You play your own sports on the weekend, then you go right to the TV and you'd watch Notre Dame, talk about Notre Dame, and everyone was obsessed with it. And so for me, once I got to old enough to be able to play, and I played all through Pee Wee and through high school, I knew I wanted to stay connected to the game somehow. I didn't know how. And I kind of stumbled into journalism, which was awesome. And I got really lucky because, I had a couple internships, but when I landed at in Newark, New Jersey, a newspaper called the Star Ledger, and so happened they had an opening for a second Jets beat writer when I was an intern, and I ended up shifting onto that beat in 2010 when they had Rex Ryan and Bart Scott, and they went to the AFC Championship game, and man, I was 21 and having the time of my life.
And plenty to write about with Rex, right?
Oh, I always said, thank God I did that beat when I was 21 and not 34, because if I had Rex Ryan when I was 34, and I wouldn't have the stamina for it. If you were just up all night, you were worried about what he was going to do the next day, and all the players on the team, what they were doing at night, and it was just, it was a good time though. And so from there I was hooked. I mean, I got a taste of the NFL, and I knew that, Lord willing, be able to make a career out of it, so this will be my 12th NFL season starting up this year. So
And then
I'm
from the
excited.
Star Ledger, how long did you cover the Jets then at the Star Ledger?
So I did the Jets for 2 years, and then the biggest shift ever, because we covered the Jets and the Giants. I moved over to the Giants, and
Okay.
go from Rex Ryan to Tom Coughlin was culture shock, uh, absolute culture shock. But that was fun. I got to do one of the really bad Giants years, and then Odell Beckham's rookie year, which was a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
fun.
So you saw the
And
catch?
so here's a funny story. I worked almost right up until then, and then I left to go to around the NFL like right before the catch happened.
Oh,
So
no.
I missed the catch. Um, but one of my good friends from the Star Ledger is actually the guy who took that picture, and he's in
Oh,
the corner of
awesome.
the end zone, and you can see somebody taking his picture of him taking the picture, and it's so funny. Like, he said, I had no idea I got the shot. He's like, I'm falling backwards because I think someone's about to hit me. My eyes are closed, and he's just like pointing the camera, and he ended up getting one of the most iconic pictures in NFL history,
Oh,
which is
no
pretty cool.
doubt.
Even on a cover, it's iconic.
Yeah, that
Yep.
segues right into one of the more memorable Madden covers. But EA just put out the Madden cover for Madden 23 with John
Yes.
Madden on it. What are your thoughts on the cover art, the game, the state of the game? Because I think aren't you a Portland River Hawks?
Portland Riverhogs. Yeah, I got my shirt right up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
One of the listeners actually drew that, and it says Portland Riverhogs football. Um, and then Minot State was my college football dynasty, and so I
Okay.
have those represented. Yeah, it was funny. I mean, all that stuff was taped before my daughter was born, and then when you have kids, your Madden productivity goes way down. But I
For
would say,
reasons.
yeah.
Definitely reasons. Hey, when they hit a certain age, then it starts to pick back up again. Just so
I
you,
know. I'm
but
excited when my son gets into prime age. Like I'm ready. I'm ready to jump back in. But everything that I still follow the game, and I think it's important to me because it still gets generations of kids into the sport, and so I think that's important. And I do think they need to, like, a lot of my friends play NBA, the NBA 2K, and I
okay.
think that Matt needs to go a little bit further in terms of like what you can do with franchise mode and make it a little more customizable, and be able to kind of evolve your story and your narrative in the game. And I think they'll get there, but I think they need to get a little bit better. But I'm glad they put Madden and not a player on the cover, because I always get so nervous about
The
Madden.
Madden curse and
I
yeah,
know, yeah,
and what a tribute to John
Yes.
Madden with that cover art.
Yes.
So yeah, it's
very cool.
with Madden. One of the things that I don't understand is why is it released in August, and why is it not released the day after the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
Everybody would be doing mock drafts. Everybody would be, I mean, because you just had the Super Bowl, it's over. Like everybody's jonesing for more football, and then players are like right there, doing franchise in mode and drafting and going crazy. And by the time it gets round to August, everybody's like, well, real football's here. I don't want to, I don't want to play football. Is insane.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I agree. I think one of the things, one of the things that the NBA figured out way before the NFL, and the NFL is just coming up to realize this, is fans are so much more interested, not more interested, but so interested in the administrative part of the game, right?
right.
Trades, drafts, internal cap stuff, contracts,
Yeah.
and the more that you can feed the fan base that, I think the more obsessed they become. And I think capitalizing on that window and putting them in a even if you want to do it the day after the draft or 2 days after the draft, make it a digital download with all the rosters in there. And I think people would redraft and do mock, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think the earlier you could get it out there, the better. I agree with you.
Yeah, it'd be quite awesome to put your players on the team and run through the
Yeah.
season and have a blast at it. But you would we have NHL 22 or 23
20,
or 21. They all run together.
20.
But it gets to a certain point where there's like almost too much, and you need a simple mode. I agree with you that you need all the intricacies for those players out there and different stuff. And yeah,
We have, I believe, the first 20.
yeah, we have a couple versions, I think. And I also have an old Xbox around here with the last NCAA football 13 on it, and he wanted me to sell it for $20 to GameStop, and I had to buy it off of him.
No, yeah, well, so I sold it. I sold my copy again, like right before my daughter was born. I sold it for $100 on eBay.
Okay.
But yeah, I would hang on, but I sold it when they because they were talking about releasing a new NCAA, and I think with name, image, and likeness, it's going to come at some point.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is probably as valuable as this game is going to be, and so let's get rid of it. I mean, $100, and it's just sitting there in my in the drawer in my office. So
Never hurts to grab that cash, right?
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
that's right.
so what is your favorite team?
That's a good question. So when it came to the pros, I was so obsessed with college football that I never had a real team, and then all my friends got teams. I grew up in Northeast PA, so it was all Steelers and Eagles fans, a couple Giants fans, but I thought that was boring. Yeah, so I said, okay, I'll just pick the next team that comes into existence, and so I picked that was the 1999 Browns, and I loved being a Browns fan. I loved being a Browns fan until, quite honestly, like 3 months ago. And so I think, we had, oh my gosh, we had Johnny Manziel jerseys in the house. We had Tim Couch, and gosh, I have a whole closet full of them. And so, but it's fun now that as a family, we sat down and we decided that we're gonna pick a team together. We're gonna open up our fandom, and I tweeted it not too long ago, and I would say the most offers that we got as a family were from Buffalo. The Bills wanted
Bills
us all.
Mafia.
Bills Mafia. But I don't know. This is it's exciting. I was just out in Cincinnati for work. I could see us growing up Bengals fans too. I don't know. It's fun to be out in the open right now.
I would suggest anyone in the West.
Well, yeah. I think we would tell you that there's plenty of room to join the Chargers, obviously,
for Chargers, but
and a lot of excitement around the team, a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
When you were a Browns fan from '99 until recently, as you watch games, any superstitions, or are you usually busy writing and not able to wear your favorite jersey or?
Yeah, they don't let us do that. Once I started covering the league, you kind of have to leave your fandom behind, which was okay because the Browns from 2010, when I started covering the NFL, until this year, really weren't very good, and so I never really had to worry about it. And but I would say, certainly for Notre Dame, for college football, I always have my favorite jersey.
Okay.
I had Brady Quinn signed a jersey for me when I was younger, and so I had a Brady Quinn jersey that I always wore. And
another Brown's great.
Another Brown's great. Never got a real shot. I think if Brady Quinn got a shot, he would have been
okay.
But yeah, I was a big Brady Quinn fan, so I always wore my Brady Quinn jersey. And I always made something real, and I still do this every Sunday, even though I'm working. I try to make something really good. I like to just make like a really good meal. That's always something that is part of my favorite part about.
So good food, and when you get the chance, wear your favorite jersey.
That's
awesome.
Right. Yeah.
With the Browns, we watched about a month ago. You were on ATN talking about the article that you wrote, Hugh Jackson in the Cleveland Browns. One question that I've always had as obviously somebody outside watching the Browns, looking in like a lot of people,
But in this,
they went through a period of collecting all these draft picks and the whole Moneyball, and then they turn it over to John Dorsey, and we see the result. Like you did what you wanted in acquiring all this talent or all this draft capital, and then you turn it over to an old school NFL guy to do what? Like just baffled me as it was going on. Never understood it. I mean, did you see it that way, or did you think it was in good hands at the time? Or
Initially, when the entire thing started in 2015, when they hired Hugh Jackson that offseason, I thought this is a slam dunk. He was assistant of the year that year with the Bengals. He was running stuff on offense that I think we're seeing now. Like he really wasn't Irvin. So I thought this is a slam dunk. I thought it was a great idea to pair the front office the way that they did, and to the Paul DePodesta who was the guy in Moneyball.
Yeah.
Bringing him in, I thought, wow, like this is a really unique thing. It's a cool idea, and they were doing cool stuff. I mean, they were. I remember the Brock Osweiler trade where they essentially just bought a second-round draft pick and then cut him.
Saved the Texans.
Yeah, and I thought, how smart all this stuff is.
Well, that was Sashi, right? That was a lot of Sashi.
Yeah, a lot of that was Sashi, and Sashi and Paul DePodesta. And I think what happened was, like any owner, Jimmy Haslam kind of got nervous and was like, okay, I don't know if this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And so you panic and you hire the guy that all of your owner friends tell you to hire, who was John Dorsey at the time, who just had moved on from the Chiefs. And so, from there, I mean, I think everything you hear out of Cleveland now is they're still listening to Paul DePodesta. The Moneyball thing is still happening, and now it's on track. But to me, if you needed to go get Deshaun Watson and pay him the largest contract in NFL history, then I don't know how good the plan could have been 5 years ago that, this is all the stuff that you're doing to make up for the things you still don't have. I mean, job 1 through 10 is get quarterback,
right.
And they were never able to do that. And I still really like Baker Mayfield personally, and I think he would be a good quarterback somewhere. But I think they kind of lost their way a little bit there.
Okay. Let's transition to state of the NFL, if it's okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And where we wanted to touch on like current defenses in the NFL. We did an episode, early look at the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, you see defenses, playing more too high. You see lots of talk about Brandon Staley and the defense that he's installing. You look at the Buffalo Bills that rotate defensive linemen throughout the entire game so that no one's gassed at the end.
Like it's nothing.
Right. Obviously, on the back end, they have Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Where do you see defenses trending in 2022 and 2023 at the moment?
So this is interesting and related to Brandon Staley. So I felt like I was the first kind of national guy to write a big story about Brandon Staley back when he was still with the Rams. And what I had always heard was that Sean McVay, he would play Vic Fangio and he would get so frustrated and he said, I have to have somebody who knows this. But what's interesting about Vic, who's actually from Scranton, or where I'm from, so really old school guy.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I mean, I know my defense is great, and so I'm not going to teach it to anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody how to do this. And what's so interesting about Brandon was a coach, out in the outposts of football and in small-time college football, but he was obsessed with Vic's defense. He was an offensive coach, taught himself Vic's defense just through watching the tape.
Wow.
Somehow got a job on his staff, learned what he needed to learn, And then by the time that he walked into the interview with Sean McVay, what I had heard was it was over before it started. He said, I have to have this guy. And so Brandon has been so far ahead. He's probably the only other guy who really understands the defense as well as Vic does. All these other coaches, I think, are kind of coming late to it. They're trying to borrow from the film and then figure it, almost reverse engineer it. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be a ton of too high. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon for a couple reasons. Half the league now is running outside zone, and too high pairs really well against outside zone. And the league is so mobile now at the quarterback position, and the too high forces you to basically, like you guys know, I mean, it forces your quarterback to stand back in the pocket and be perfect. And a lot of guys can't do that. That's why Patrick Mahomes struggled for a little bit there,
Right.
because he was creating with his legs and then throwing to open guys. And I think that's why Joe Burrow was so good, because that's where he always thrived. He was hyper accurate, really cool under pressure, and so he was able to pick apart too high looks. So I don't think that's going anywhere. I think we're going to kind of see those two systems clash a lot this year.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting, right? It's like every couple of years we see this massive evolution. Before that, it was everyone wanted an Andy Reid system. Now everyone wants Kyle Shanahan's system. Before this, basically 90% of the league was running Pete Carroll cover 3, and then now everybody's running too high. And so it's really interesting to see. Somebody's going to break out with something that we haven't seen before, and that's what's so fun about the NFL. With the availability of film, people can copy it like that and co-opt it for their own.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about defenses, and another topic in the offseason has been this wide receiver market. We saw the Chargers hit early with Mike Williams, re-signing him, in the $20 million range. Everybody's, clearly thought Mike Williams was worth that. But then, back to Madden, we have a bunch of Madden trades. Tyreek going to Miami, Devontae going to Vegas, and then they get mega contracts. So kind of, we know the history there, but we saw Cooper get paid. We saw Hunter Renfrow get paid. Do you see the next group of wide receivers, say like a Justin Jefferson, do you see them breaking the Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, or kind of being just below them in contracts? Because that'll be a big topic next offseason, I think, Justin Jefferson.
I agree. I think it's a really good question. I see them coming probably slightly under, but probably getting more in terms of total guarantees. Like I think Tyreek and Devontae, the number is really high, but I think
age-wise,
they're fairly short-term deals because they're older. I think Justin Jefferson, maybe you'll get $25 million a year, but maybe you'll get 5 good years out of that. You know. Whereas I don't think Devontae and Tyreek necessarily have that security. But
how many years do you think out of the contract
for
Jefferson?
Tyreek and
how many years do they play in their current contracts?
Yes.
How many years?
That's a really good question. I would say Devontae probably not that long. I see him go back
3, 4.
Probably another.
I would say like 2. I would say 2 for me. And Tyreek the same, because here's what I'll say about Tyreek Hill. Once and this is not a knock on him. I think it's just a recognition of all of our bodies, right? It's like once the speed starts to go on him a little bit, you're going to lose so much of what makes him a special player, And I think that Miami's going to use him right now. Like everyone's kind of picturing this high-flying offense. I think he's going to carry the ball a lot, and I think he's going to catch the ball at the line to help Tua. And so I think that's going to beat him up a little bit. Like I think he's going to get some wear and tear on him.
He's probably going to be unhappy like Debo.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I agree.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. The wide receiver market was definitely reset, but I don't necessarily see anyone, pushing those contracts higher or that annual pay higher. And that kind of leads into QB contracts. A similar question. Aaron Rodgers got $50 million a year. Setting aside the Deshaun Watson contract because it was different. Russell Wilson asking for 50 a year. Patrick Mahomes on a long-term deal at 45. As we see Joe Burrow next year, as we see Justin Herbert next year, do those guys get past that 50, or are they once again just below, somewhere in between?
And also this year, you also see the Ravens.
Yeah, Lamar's not even signed yet. Yeah, so he'll.
Yeah, that's another really good point. I think
So,
my thought on that is
Go ahead.
okay.
the Deshaun thing changed a lot because it's fully guaranteed, and so I think what riled up a lot of the owners around the league was now I don't think people care as much about being 50 million. I think people care about fully guaranteed, and what's
Back to
hard
the
about
Kirk Cousins, fully
yeah,
guaranteed. Yeah.
and what's hard about that for teams is you have to have so much of that money in escrow already to ready to hand over. And so if you're, for example, the Bengals, who are not like the Charge or who are not like the Rams, or they're not owned by this mega billionaire, right? The
Right.
Bengals are owned by the Brown family. They're not going to have. I mean, if Joe Burrow is worth 5 years at 45 million, I mean, they're going to have some $200 million like in the bank, just sitting there ready to hand over to him. And I don't think some teams have that money. And so I think that's what's going to be interesting to me is if you're Joe Burrow, do you fight something like that? Do you say, okay, I'm just happy I'm in Ohio. I live an hour and a half away from my parents. Life is good. Pay me what you can pay me. And I don't know on him. I really could
Yeah.
see him going either way. But some of these guys are going to fight it. And I think, Russell Wilson, the Broncos are about to get bought by Walmart. I'd be like, yeah, you got money. So
Yeah. Yeah,
you're okay.
that was the funny thing that when you first saw the news about Russell Wilson, you're like, hey, he's asking an awful lot, and then it was bought by Walmart. Oh, get it, Russ, get it.
Yeah, they
Um,
got money. Yeah, they're okay.
Yes.
and I think you bring out an interesting point. It's not so much about salary cap or it's about capital on hand, and the finances of the actual franchise, and not so much revenue sharing. It's the you have to have that money in the bank, if you will, to be able to pay those players. And talking about quarterbacks and like Justin Herbert, obviously his Chargers outside zone, we're very excited to see his third year.
Yes.
A couple years ago when he was coming out of Oregon, and he's a quarterback prospect that played at Oregon for a few years. I think he left as a senior, right? And
I believe.
lots of questions around him as a prospect. Is he a leader? Is he, can
He's
he
very
adapt to an
quiet.
NFL? A couple games were highlighted, the one against Cal and Austin Davis, of how he wasn't really reading defenses very well. How does he go from that prospect? The Chargers selecting him 6th, no matter what anybody else is saying. Thankfully, for them, the Dolphins went Tua, and then, they get Herbert, and now he's, many consider him. If you're going to start a franchise today, who would you start it with? And there's a good percentage of people that say Justin Herbert. How did he go from that prospect to who he is today? In your
That's a
opinion?
really good. Yeah, and Thomas, I think you're right too. I remember them saying like too quiet of a player. Wasn't going to be able to lead and stuff like that. But I think what changed for them was, Justin had a really good coaching staff, and I like the current coaching staff that's in there now. But I thought having Anthony Lynn as a first-time head coach was really good. I think Anthony was a player for a long time in the NFL, and someone who kind of helped bring him in. And their offensive coordinator at the time was Shane Steichen, who is now in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. And
Okay.
look at how much better Jalen Hurts played once Shane Steichen got there. And,
Yes.
Shane is really under the radar. I think he's going to end up developing as kind of a big head coach in waiting kind of guy this year.
Okay.
But I think Justin too. One of the other things is he just has it, and I think how you can tell. One coach was saying that if you look at all of the great quarterbacks in the NFL, and this I looked it up, and this is true. It's true of Big Ben even before he kind of fell off. Phillip Rivers in his best years, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. What percentage of your throws are you hitting check down targets, and you're just right away you're not seeing anything, and you're just dumping the ball off, and you're gaining 4 or 5 yards at a time.
Yep.
And Justin did that from day one as a rookie. I mean, he didn't try to do too much. He always moved the football from day one and really set himself up, I think, to have that breakout second year.
Yeah, and it's also kind of interesting because you get the news in the offseason of the Mike Williams signing. He gets the text message, "Where is he?" He's down in the weight room, right? And it's kind of a good story for the Chargers that your quarterback's always in the room and not really looking to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're super excited. Obviously, in your 100 bowl predictions, you had him topping 38 touchdowns, topping 5,014 yards, and then taking home the MVP for the league, which would be fabulous. And so where would does he push the 50 touchdown mark? How many yards could he throw for in this offense?
It's a good question. I think the sky's the limit. I mean, this, it's not one of those offenses that you look at right away and you say, oh my gosh, look at all these weapons. They're going to be able to do this and that. But I think it's well designed, and I think that's just as important. And I think that they'll be able to create a lot of mismatches. I think they diversified the running game a little bit, which should help him.
With Spiller.
And it was Spiller, yeah. And I think that was a good pick. And so, and it's just another year for him. I mean, you put that guy, that body, that brain, and you give all of the tools. And when football gambling was legalized out here, I remember bumping into someone down at one of the places, and he said, like, that's what every kind of insider Vegas guy would look at, is that year 2 to year 3.
Okay.
As the big jump, and statistically, I mean, it bears out, right? I mean, that's really when you see a player either go from very good to Hall of Fame, or just, hey, we're going to stay very good and sort of peter out. And so if you had to ask me, which way do I think he's going? I mean, I'm betting on the guy that, shoot, look at his first start. He found out 4 minutes before the game, and then ended up playing hard out. And so, I think I have a lot of respect for him as a player.
Well, I think all the Chargers fans, will point to that hit that he took on the sideline, and stood right up.
Mm-hmm.
In that game against Kansas City. That was quite amazing. Big shot, and they kept him in the game, and I think they ended up Kansas City ended up winning in overtime, but man, he gave it all it's worth, finding out 10 seconds before kickoff that you're starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate your time. We have a segment that we were going to do, the lightning round.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
It would typically be the speed round, but since we're a Chargers podcast, it's the lightning round.
Quick round of questions.
And so, yeah, just some quick hitters here, and then we'll let you get out of here. So starting off the lightning round, what is your favorite sandwich?
Ooh.
Yes.
I would say it changes from time to time, but right now there's a deli down the street from me called Sergio's, and they make chicken cutlet with broccoli rabe and balsamic glaze on it, and that's my favorite right now. I've been eating a lot of that. Too much.
If they put that in a advertisement and threw it up on YouTube, I would have to make the drive to go grab one. Because somebody wants to eat everything he sees on YouTube, for sure.
Hey, advertising works, man. That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
So, where does Baker play in 2022?
And
Hold
2023.
on. Give it away.
2022. I'm gonna take the easy way out and say Panthers right now, even though I don't like that answer. I think Panthers in 2022.
So they make the trade. Is Darnold part of the trade going back the other way, or are they stuck with two $19 million fifth-year quarterbacks?
I think they're. Yeah,
that's a brutal place to be.
Okay.
So where does Baker play in 2023?
So that is where to look, right? And so now you start looking around the league and you say, okay, did the Kyler Murray contract get done? If not, did he force his way out? Does he want to be somewhere else? That's a landing spot for Baker because he knows Cliff Kingsbury. And so, you wonder if something like that happens. You're looking at teams that are getting older. Would Todd Bowles take a crack at him? Because I think Tom Brady's going to play long in this year, but I don't think he's going to play in Tampa Bay after this year. And so maybe Tampa Bay's another. New Orleans, I could see wanting him. I think Baker's a good quarterback. I think Cleveland's a weird place. He just needs to get out of there.
Yeah, quickly.
Also, if that trade happens in 2022 and they don't succeed, head coaching?
Yeah, so we'll get there as part of the lightning round. Next question is, does Saquon top 1,000 yards rushing again in his career?
Again in his career. I don't think he tops 1,000 yards rushing again in his career, but I do think he catches at least 60 balls this year. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes this year. And I think he will be kind of like a third down back for the rest of his career. But like a pretty good one, but not kind of what we expected out of him as a player.
Is he a Giant past 2022?
No,
I
don't think so.
Definitely not. Worst stadium in the NFL?
Worst? Boy.
You got
well, for a while it was the old Charger Stadium.
The Murph and Star Hub.
Oh man,
but
boy, San Diego was so beautiful. You'd go there for the games, and then the stadium was falling apart. I just remember being like, "Oh, that was a tough one." Bengals also a little iffy there too.
Riverfront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
For right now, what's the worst stadium?
Cincinnati.
Okay.
And if the Bills get a new stadium, then they'll be by themselves. What's the best stadium in the NFL?
Well, I was just at the Super Bowl, and the new stadium in LA is phenomenal. I mean, it's outrageous. I've never seen anything like that. But I will say, nothing for me tops. I don't know what they call it now. I mean, it was CenturyLink, whatever the Seahawks sponsor is now.
Yeah.
That place is phenomenal. And if you're covering a game there, if you ever have a chance to cover a game there, because Seattle is obviously the birthplace of Starbucks, they have their own Starbucks barista that keeps running back and forth, and they'll take your coffee orders throughout the game. I said, I'm never going home. This is phenomenal. It's unbelievable.
In 2015, I would spend 1 week a month in Seattle. And so I would stay down in the South Docks area. Yes. It was beautiful. I was there when Big Bertha was going through.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Cool. Some time ago. Will the NFL ever expand again?
I think at some point they're going to have to, because all these owners are threatening to use other cities to get their cities to build stadiums. And at some point, all these other cities are going to say, hey, we're sick of you just using us for this. We would like a team. So I think San Antonio is – so when they have the Alliance of American Football team, they loved AAF. I think San Antonio is a good market. I don't ever see London. I don't ever see any kind of overseas teams, but I think somewhere in Texas, I think Texas could probably host another team. Somewhere in the South, I would say probably makes sense.
Yeah. You also have, Birmingham, St. Louis, all the spots on Madden.
Yeah, give St. Louis their team back. The poor Rams fans out there.
It's kind of interesting because you kind of to get from 32, the next logical step is like 36, so that would be four teams, and we kind of hit on the cities. In today's news, thoughts on the New Orleans Saints black helmets?
Very cool. I see. I'm all in on stuff like that. I think that outside of if you're the Steelers, you stay the Steelers. I mean that's like if you're the Packers, you stay the Packers. Everyone else, have fun with it. I loved the chart when the Chargers revealed their new uniforms last year. I thought they were awesome, and I mean Nike, you're gonna sell more uniforms if you keep making new ones. And so I don't know, make it interesting for us. I say do whatever do whatever comes to mind because the cooler the better for me.
Have you ever seen the Steelers all whites with the yellow helmets?
No.
Google that. That is some sweet unis there.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so the big deal with allowing more than one helmet, that helps out New Orleans this year, the Steelers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the creamsicles, Atlanta with the Reds. So you're gonna get a lot of
the Jaguars with
bring back the two tones.
Their weird two
That was cool back then. I mean, for 1996, it was very cool.
Yeah. Well, no, the one like 3 or 4 years ago where they had the two tone, right?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was kind of strange.
Yes.
When you first played sports, your first organized team, their mascot name.
So we were called the Comets.
Okay.
It was funny though. So our school used to be called the Astros, but back in the 70s, everyone used to call us the blank holes instead of the Astros. And so the school actually changed its name from Astros to Comets so that they couldn't yell that anymore. So that's how
nice.
It became.
Does Matt Rule finish the 2022 season as the Panthers head coach?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think he's out of rope. I was very surprised he came back this year.
Who do you think?
Well, I mean, he highlighted the gentleman offensive coordinator in Philly, right? He'd probably be on top of the list and go from there with the.
Steichen would be good. Marcus Brady is with the Colts. I think is a good one. Zach Taylor, who's the Bengals head coach, his brother Press is going to be the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville this year. That's a guy who I could see. Raheem Morris in L.A. I think deserves a shot at some point. So yeah, I mean, I think there's.
What about
Sean Payton too? Can never forget about Sean Payton.
What about he going to end up in Carolina though?
The Chargers head coach, the Chargers old head coach,
Anthony Lynn is in Detroit. He could always.
Yeah, he moved over to San Francisco before this year, and their teams are hiring 49ers assistants like crazy. So I could see Anthony Lynn getting back into the game for sure.
Because you have head coaches getting drudged up.
Retreads.
Retreads.
Yeah,
all right.
Big year.
Last question here of our supposed lightning round. Best podcast with less than 100 subscribers that you've ever appeared on.
Oh, this is not even close. It's Chargers outside. I would have told you that this is the most fun I've had doing a podcast in a very, very long time. So,
well, that's good to hear. We would love to have you back at some point, and I mean, thank you so much for your time today, and really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you.
Guys.
Anything we didn't cover that you want to put out on Chargers Outside Zone?
I'll say I'll sneak in a plug for Sports Illustrated, and I'll tell
Yeah.
people to buy it magazine because they still make those. These print products, and they're great. You can carry them anywhere. So buy a magazine.
All
They're
right.
great.
So go to your newsstand and pick up
Yes.
Sports Illustrated's hard copy magazine.
Yes.
All right. Super.
And please like and subscribe. I'm sorry about.
Yeah, we'll do an outro. I think we'll just
100%. Yes. I'll say it too, though. Like and subscribe to Chargers Outside Zone. It's the best. It really is.
awesome. Thank you so
We
much.
can keep that for the outro.
Yeah, we got a long way to go on our. Our next things are backgrounds, intros, and outros and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
But tomorrow and Saturday I'll be doing the editing and piece it all together and get it out there. So, this has been a lot of fun.
Well, yeah.
Would never have imagined 21 episodes in that you would, it's somebody I knew in the podcasting space back in the day. Writing for Sports Illustrated would have been joining us, but really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Happy. My pleasure, guys. Really, I had a lot of fun. So and if there's anything I can ever help with, podcasting wise, if you guys have any questions or if there's anything I can ever help with in that regard, you got my number. Feel free to reach out.
Definitely. And please thank your wife for allowing and your children for allowing us to have this time. Much appreciated.
Yes.
No problem. Thank you guys so much.
Super. Have a great evening.
Have a
Take
great
care.
evening.
You too, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye. Welcome back. We just finished the conversation with Conor in this podcast, and really want to thank Conor for his time. Thank Conor and his wife and his kids.
Thank you.
Really appreciate him taking the hour to sit down with us, and
Thank you for giving the time.
yeah, definitely really appreciate that.
And also follow him on Twitter.
Definitely follow him on Twitter and read his articles, click on his articles, all those things. But it was really interesting learning more about Brandon Staley and Vic Fangio's reluctance to teach anyone his defense. But Brandon Staley went and became a part of a Vic Fangio coaching staff. Sean McVay
Wanted to grab him up.
poached him, if you will.
Yes.
And now Brandon Staley's on the sideline of the Los Angeles Chargers, putting together what we think is going to be a remarkable defense this year. We also talked to Justin Herbert, how he went from the prospect that he was to, entering his third year. And, next offseason, there's going to be lots of talk about Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and the contracts. I don't think you'll see a Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson type contract thing. I think you're going to see a Josh Allen type contract
Yes.
signing for those two. But yeah, we'll see. And had a lot of fun going through the lightning round questions and really appreciate his time. Hopefully if we get enough views and subscribers on this channel, maybe Conor would be kind enough to come back and join us.
Yes.
I know we would definitely like that to happen. So yeah, if you get a chance, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chargers Outside Zone. Give us a like on this video. Follow us on Twitter at LAC
Twitter.
Outside Zone. And if you get a chance, have any questions, email us at chargersoutsidezone@gmail.com. Really appreciate you staying around for this staying this long in this episode. So with that, join us every Tuesday and Saturday for new episodes, and have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.